There's something I've found in media that you don't really see that often anymore, and I feel like it is in most old shows, but not in today's stuff, at least as far as what I've seen. But what it is, it's this magical and homey vibe, and it's most notably in your Studio Ghibli films, but some other examples would be like The Never-Ending Story, The Dark Crystal, heck, even Winnie the Pooh. But I started thinking about this feeling, this magicalness, and wondering how do you do it? Because I started my comic series, Evil Villain Academy, and I wanted to make the most magical world possible. But how do you do it? What makes things more magical than others? So I really want to study this, and I think that analyzing and watching forms of art that have the most magicalness to them is a good place to start doing that. And thanks to my friends in the UK, I was introduced to this series called Moomin, which is this IP created by Tove Jansson, a Swedish illustrator. But this particular animated series of it was animated in Japan all the way back in 1990. So this is about a 30-year-old cartoon. And we're going to be looking at it, and I'll be going through all the episodes eventually and analyzing each one. And it's going to be one heck of an adventure. So, let's get started. The series starts us out in Moomin Valley during the dead of winter, as the narrator tells us about the characters in this house: our main star, Moomin, his mom, Moomin Mama, the papa, Moomin Papa, and lastly we have Little Mai. You know, I really wish the names for the parents were better. Why even add Moomin in front? Just call them Papa and Mama. It's the exact same thing that's in Berenstain Bears. Berenstain? I don't know. You got Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Brother Bear, Sister Bear, and that's just really lame. It's just a quick way to give characters no character, and it honestly just seems like a confusing system to have in a household. I mean, imagine every time Moomin Mama is called, that Moomin turns his head because his damn name was said first. I can look past it though, I won't dwell on it. So the family is sleeping through winter, and we see the snow melt and spring settle in. Moomin wakes up excited to get everyone else up. Little Mai is up first, but isn't as happy. I guess this scene right here is to showcase her personality right away. She's really brash and rude. And by the way, she's so tiny that you might be under the impression that she's a baby kid, but I really get this teenager vibe, or you could even see her as an adult even. It's up to speculation, I suppose, but it's honestly better that way. Sometimes knowing characters' ages can make you suddenly change your impression on them. Did you know that Jake from Adventure Time is 35 years old? What? Or that Sonic is 15 years old? Yeah, that's right. And he's got a 12-year-old girlfriend, Amy. It's very off-putting, but at least Rouge the Bat is 18 years old, if you know what I'm saying. But I think leaving ages up to mystery is the better way to go. It's much more magical that way. You know, maybe magicalness and mystery go hand in hand in a semi-connected way. Who knows? Anyways, I love how Little Mai isn't all that pretty. Along with her size, it just makes her endearing in a way, despite her meanish personality. So Moomin runs outside to see spring, and here's when I noticed that this show's sound effects are really great and charming. Everything makes sounds that wouldn't actually happen. It's like everything is squeaky, and I don't know how to explain it. It just really adds a lot of charm to the show.
Wouldn't it be quicker to use the stairs?
So Moomin and Mai are running, and she thanks him for letting her stay at his house during winter. Apparently she's not a part of the Moomin family, but makes sense, I guess. She doesn't look like him. She leaves, and Moomin runs up to the small bridge where we meet Snufkin, Moomin's friend. At this point, I was thinking, damn, a second human character already? Is it just a show full of Moomins and humans? Hey, wait, that rhymes. I wonder if they named them Moomins because of that. Anyways, who's to say that they even are humans? They're pretty small, so I kinda like to think that they're gnomes or something instead. And Snufkin here is not a Moomin, so he wasn't sleeping all through the winter. Moomin asks him what he did, and he ominously replies, "I'll tell you later." I noticed this episode really has a lot of subtle mysteries to it, and just a couple scenes later our characters run past this new character who they say hi to, but we don't even get to see his face. All these subtle mysteries were probably done to hook people on just the first episode. I gotta say it works. So Moomin and Snufkin go and pick up the third friend, Sniff. That's right, the friends are Snufkin and Sniff. Either the creator Tove Jansson was just bad at names or it was an oversight. I know it can happen. In my comic, I accidentally made too many characters' names start with M. There's Mayful, Molly, Marinette, Mrs. Mermaid. But come on, Sniff and Snufkin. I'm gonna have a hard time keeping that straight. By the way, I'll try to put the characters' names visually on screen when they're introduced. I usually can't remember people's names until I know how they're spelled, so I'm doing it in case anybody else's brain is like mine. So the characters start climbing what they call a mountain, but it's more just like a big hill. They do it presumably so they could look over Moomin Valley and watch the snow melt and flowers blossom, but at the top of the hill, they stop and see a hat on the ground. Top hat. Moomin thinks his dad will like it because his dad also sports that kind of fashion, the top hat. So they take it and bring it back home. Moomin Papa puts it on and it's too big, yet it gets stuck on his head too. You know, for a moment I thought, oh, this is going to be the plot of the episode, that it's stuck on the dad's head. But then they get it off in 10 seconds, so I don't know what the point of that was exactly. So no one wears it and they decide to use it as a trash can. They then leave for breakfast and boom. Yeah, it just moved on its own. Next we cut to a completely new Moomin character, picking flowers and running into a house, and then trying to talk to yet another Moomin about something. Damn, there is just too many of these at this point, if you ask me. And this thing, I only know this because I read a bit of the Wikipedia, but apparently these two aren't Moomins, they're another species that looks exactly the same. Yeah. How mildly exciting. These are Snorks, and apparently the difference is that they can come in different colors, and they change colors based on their moods. How exciting. Except for the fact that they're still white. Although, in the comic books, it apparently describes them as pale yellow and mauve. How mildly exciting. The show doesn't really introduce these characters' names at all either, but this one is Snork. Yeah, he's just named after the species, just like Moomin. And the pale yellow one is Snork Maiden. These terrible names are starting to get a bit annoying. Like, there's so much effort put into everything else in the show, but the names. So it introduces us to how Snork is making a flying machine, but it still needs work, and the other characters think it's impossible. Well, somewhat at least. So back at the regular Moomin house, Moomin Papa puts some eggshells in the trash can top hat and leaves. It then turns the eggshells into an ominous cloud, which then turns into puffy cute clouds that our characters hop onto to have some fun in the sky. These scenes where they're just playing on the clouds goes on for a while, but nothing really happens. I guess it's just there to be all magical and stuff, and again it works. For a moment it made me want to make my own magical cloud things in my comic. But then I remembered, I already have a character with a floating cloud as a wheelchair, and the cloud itself is actually a character, and this Cloudian species has an intense sort of Buddhist monk type culture. But did I miss out on an opportunity? Or did Moomin miss out on an opportunity? What's more magical? Anyways, Moomin Papa finally sees the sun outside and the sky on a cloud and freaks out naturally. But Moomin tries to coerce his dad to come out and try it. Forcibly. Yeah, he pulls his dad out the window and makes him fall to the ground. What a terrible child. If my own son did that, I'd ground him for the rest of spring. So the clouds end up disappearing eventually, and then they start playing hide and seek. Yeah, kind of random, and there's really no transition to it. It just cuts, and all of a sudden Sniff's counting down. Whatever though. So, predictably they're hiding, and Moomin decides to hide in the hat. He's last to be found, and when they do find him, Moomin comes out of the hat, except he's totally different. He's transformed into this really ugly, but at the same time pretty awesome looking creature, and yet nobody believes it's really him. When he finally sees himself in the mirror, he gets really distressed. This scene is almost too real, and actually almost made me feel like what it would be to be turned into a horrible creature. Anyone would start freaking out uncontrollably. So Moomin Mama comes in, And the scene kinda repeats, except that she's willing to listen to him, unlike the other characters. You know, I thought it would be pretty cool if Moomin was this creature for at least a few episodes and had to go on some grand adventure to change back. After all, in the beginning, the narrator did introduce Moomin as our hero. But instead of that, Moomin Mama looks in his eyes, sees that it really is Moomin, and gives him a hug. Yeah. And then, boom, baby. The power of love and acceptance overpowers the magic and turns him back into his big-nosed, chubby butt self. How mildly touching. You know, there's no explanation to how that changed him back, or even if it was that. Maybe the magic just wore off after 2 minutes and it's all just a cheap parlor trick of the hat. But nope. Nobody thinks that, and Moomin Papa decides it needs to be tossed, so Moomin complies and tosses it in the river. As it is going down the river, the narrator explains that Moomin was unsure about doing it because the hat was special. And on top of that, why the river? You think Moomin would be nice enough to go put it back where he found it, where maybe the original owner would find it there again. Instead, they just put it in the river where maybe some other innocent people or creatures might stumble upon it and actually get really hurt by its magic. It just seems a bit careless. And Moomin somewhat wanted to keep it, so why wouldn't he just hide it back on the mountain? Who knows? And that concludes the first episode of Moomin. I know I spent a long time summarizing this first episode, but in future videos of this series, I'll probably cover 2 to 4 episodes of Moomin per video. And there's 65 of them, so it might be a long mini-series. And this video was comparatively pretty easy to make compared to all the other crazy ones that I do, and I wanted to make a mini-series that is easy to make because making 100% crazy videos that take 20 to 50 hours of editing and animating can get a bit tiring, and I think that this will be a really cool way just to make some more content and have a lot of fun along the way. And that brings me to my next point, which is that I want to thank all the patrons that help make this possible. If I do continue the series to the end, I'm going to have to buy DVDs for the later episodes. There's only so many available on YouTube, so consider becoming a patron and becoming a part of the I don't know. Just be a patron, alright? Anyways, hope you liked the video. And I'll make a next one next week, maybe the other week, I don't know, every other week. We'll see. All right, I'll see you guys next week with another video.